So welcome everybody to the General Policy Board meeting. We'll start with committee summary reports, Technical Advisory Committee, Gary Schaefer. Hi, Gary. Gary's muted too.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Since the last General Policy Board meeting, virtual Technical Advisory Committee meetings were held in September and October. Some of the programs and topics that we discussed at these meetings were the State Route 46 Corridor Plan, statewide targets for safety performance management measures, the fiscal year 2020 work program, summary review, EDA program updates, including the broadband feasibility grant. Also, the Clean Ohio program funding round 15 was announced. The Ohio Public Works Committee activities were presented, and an update to the regional zoning data set was presented at these meetings. Reoccurring topics included the 2020 census, as well as the fiscal year 2021, the 24 Transportation Improvement Program, and ARC program and project updates. General Policy Board resolutions reviewed and approved by the committee were 27-2020 and 28 through 29, 2020, and 31-2020 were all reviewed and approved. There was also one intergovernmental review resolution reviewed and approved by the Technical Advisory Committee, and that was 30-2020. That concludes my report.
Thanks, Gary. Any questions for Gary? Next up, Citizens Advisory Board, Justin.
Thank you, Julie. Since the last General Policy Board meeting, the Citizens Advisory Board met virtually in September and October. In September, the CAB was introduced to Mike Ripko and James Dignan and given information about their new roles coordinating economic development and recovery within the region. Additionally, the board heard a presentation from Leah Sakax, the program coordinator for the Retired and Senior Volunteer Program in the Senior Support Action Group. In October, the CAB was given an update on regional broadband initiatives by Mark Ragazine, as well as a presentation from Grant Taylor covering updates to several safety projects throughout the region, and information on the 2020 statewide targets for safety performance measures. The CAB continues to meet in a virtual capacity and remain productive despite the challenges that meeting format presents. The board is currently recruiting members for the 2021 calendar year, and applications are available on the CAB page of Eastgate's website. The CAB approved the following resolutions: 27-2020, 28-2020, 29-2020, and 31-2020. And this concludes the report of the Citizens Advisory Board.
Thank you, Justin. Any questions for Justin? Next, Finance Executive Committee, Jim Kinnick.
Thank you, Julie. The Finance Executive Committee met this morning for our quarterly meeting. We had an opportunity to review and discuss the current financial report and status as of October 19, 2020. It was reviewed and approved by the committee. Glad to say, or proud to say, that we're in strong financial standing. A quick review of our checking account shows $295,000, savings account $450,000, project fund that we hold and move money through $4.1 million, with $356,000 in outstanding invoices. And that's consistent. We're ahead of where we were last year at this point in the previous years. And a lot that has to do with being able to generate additional opportunities, not only for the communities, but for Eastgate financially through administrative costs and administering various grants that I'm going to kind of cover in my next section. But recognizing the status of being strong, the committee also recommended that there's no need to raise the membership dues to Eastgate as we move into fiscal 20 or calendar year 2021. The fifth year in a row, we were able to pass that savings along to our member community. So proud to announce that also. That concludes the finance report. Chairperson Jolie.
Thank you. Next up, our Executive Director report, Jim.
Thank you, Julie. And I alluded to, I just want to kind of cover a couple of different grants and opportunities that are going on in our region right as we speak in our agency. We had the CARES Act money that was allotted to Eastgate of $400,000 for to bring on additional help to help our communities recover through this pandemic. You're going to hear from two independent contractors that we were able to bring on board. James Dignan, that's going to focus on the recovery effort of the communities over the next 12 months. And in my GRIPCO, that's going to lead the charge on through CARES Act, look for projects and the ability for communities to recover by the EDA investing in projects within communities. That alone, bringing on two gentlemen of that caliber, certainly moved the agency forward. It continues to move the agency forward, but the ability to provide services and help to our communities is clearly our focus. And we're excited about having both those gentlemen working with us and working with our communities as we continue to go forward. Again, we're fortunate to grab that, be awarded that grant this past June, and both gentlemen started with the agency September 1st. And I'm looking forward to each one of them kind of giving a brief explanation of what they're looking at. I know they've been out in the communities and met with a lot of the communities, and I'd encourage you, if you have any questions, to contact both of them. They're in our office probably every other day here, and I know they're accessible when needed. So please follow up and see how they can help you. We're continuing to move forward with our GM recovery grant that was allotted last year, but not authorized to commence until March 1st of this year. There's an update, I believe Mark from our office is going to give, given the status of where YSU is with that grant. I know that many of you heard about the REDS, which is Regional Economic Diversification Summit that was just held this past September. It was virtual, but very successful, identifying some work streams and some efforts to diversify the economy and real opportunities for our communities. Mark will give a further explanation on where we're going with that initiative, but that's very exciting. There's a lot, like I said, a lot of opportunities to move forward. As I mentioned, Mike and James both also looking at projects. Mike's really leading the charge on the CARES Act projects. We're looking at submitting 4 of them, I believe, this week. Lordstown, the water tower, Golden Triangle to talk about some infrastructure, Conneaut, possibly some dredging, and then I believe Bright, the energy incubator, when Warren is submitting one also. I would encourage everybody to work, again, with Mike on project-specific questions and applications. It's important. I know that the word we're getting back from EDA is to get the projects in this week for the first round of funding. The first round of funding included $255 or $225 million for the Chicago region, which we're part of. Mind you, that's 55 different districts like ourselves competing for that money. We're going to put this first wave of projects in, but we're going to be very proactive, having the next having applications ready should additional money become available. In my opinion, the way things are going, I would see at some point additional CARES Act money being allocated. We want to have our applications ready to go in from day one for the next wave of funding. One thing I want to touch base on, we were able to carve out some money from that initial CARES Act, and we were going to look to put some RFP out to bring some consulting services in for grant writing so that we could have the ability to help our communities move forward with possibly different grants, CARES Act or other grants that are made available, but having an expertise on board, because I know communities, if that's a difficult task, everybody's overwhelmed, and it really isn't hard to put those together. So we look to have somebody on board here by the end of the year for grant writing services to our communities. I touched on some of the EDA efforts, and EDA also just recently helped fund our broadband feasibility study that's was out for RFPs. The RFPs are being reviewed, and that's a feasibility study that'll look at the broadband in Mahoning, Trumbull, and Asheville counties. Look at those communities not only for high-speed internet in urbanized area, internet in rural areas where they have none, but really what's been brought to the forefront here during this pandemic is the affordability of broadband in some of the communities and areas of our communities. So that really is going to hone in on finding solutions. I believe that there's money available if we have a plan in place that identifies these types of solutions, and we'll chase those accordingly. I believe that's a 9 to 12 month process. So hopefully by this time next year, we'll be chasing money to implement some of the solutions brought forward. I just want to touch on the ARC monies that become available. Eastgate put in for a grant for power where we were successful. Just found out 2 weeks ago, we were successful for $1.45 million. And that'll allow the Smart Tube network in the city of Youngstown to put the conduit in the ground along the 7 streets, the streets that start in downtown Youngstown, work their way up Fifth Avenue through the University to Mercy Health. 1.5 miles of roadway, but almost 10 miles of conduit going to be put in the ground. And we look to move forward with that. Without that additional money, we were really scrambling to be able to do that. But again, tying in that tight urbanized area with the university and Mercy Health is a win, and to have that money available certainly makes that project even more successful. So we're excited there. Also, when I mentioned the broadband feasibility study, ARC put half that funding on for us. And then we're working with the state to try to get a line item in Governor DeWine's budget to increase our efforts in ARC. Currently, we operate as Kathy is a one-person show, and our success compared to the other 3 districts is just as well or even better when it comes to getting projects through the system and awarded monies and really good projects. We do it with just Kathy. These other places, the other 3 districts have twice the budget, a lot from state and federal resources. We look to even that up a little bit and hopefully be able to help offer some more assistance to Kathy as we move forward. So good stuff. We've been tough times. Pandemic has hit us all. We're working remotely. As you can see, I come in the office, but what's most importantly is we're working successful and move the agency forward. 2 other initiatives I just want to touch on. We worked with ODOT last week, participated in a safety projects review meeting with the central office, looking to get funding for the 224 corridor in Boardman, safety upgrade project of $15 million. And we're asking, ODOT's asking we support, financially also support that project to hopefully get $10 million from the state safety funds. And then I believe the Shields Road Market Street is the second project that's been put in. And like I say, and Grant does a great job, and we alluded to it earlier in the TAC that he brings up. We look for those safety locations. Says ODOT safety programs, very well run, very successful program that identifies those locations and puts money towards making those locations better. If there's anything that we can do, if we're missing something when it comes to those in your community, please reach out to us because we'll certainly assist and involve the Department of Transportation to identify those and see if we can get additional funding for those areas. But great program. The last thing I want to touch on, I probably touched on it the last time, is the success. And I encourage all the communities during this time, especially when we're all kind of scrambling from home, scrambling, working remotely. If there's something out there we can be an assistance with Eastgate, please don't hesitate to ask us. If we can help, we'll do it. If we can point you in the right direction, we'll gladly look to do that. And I used the one that came to fruition this past summer when the foundations, just a call that I meet with Jennifer and Jan and Sherry, every probably once a month or every other month. And they just brought up the fact that they have no ability to identify food pantries and tie it into a map. And they asked us to take a look at it. We were able to put an interactive map together for them, identifying the locations of food pantries, food kitchens. That certainly has been, again, highlighted during this pandemic is the need for food to our communities. We're glad to play a small part in that, making that. But the reason I bring that up is just if there's something out there we can do to give you a hand with anything, please ask. Like I said, I don't know if we can help, but we can't help if we don't know where the help's needed. So that concludes the Executive Director's report. Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. There's a lot of great things going on, and it's amazing how people are able to so seamlessly move to the virtual world and still get so much accomplished. So we appreciate it.
Great, thank you.
Next up, we have our first speaker, Carmen Steeman, Planning and Environmental Specialist with Federal Highway, presenting the primary results of Eastgate Certification Review Report.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm a planning and environmental specialist with FHWA Ohio Division, and I want to thank you for having me here today to talk to you about the Eastgate 2020 TMA certification review and the results. You should be very proud of the MPO. Its leadership under Ms. Green as the policy board chair, Ken Simpson, and all his staff that worked hard and worked every day and work hard to ensure the citizens of Youngstown have their interest into account, so you can all develop the best transportation system for everyone. In these extraordinary times, your staff has put out just an exemplary effort in being accountable to the federal review team, assisting us wherever we needed it, your member governments and agencies, but more important, they have been very responsive to the public. They've gone above and beyond to ensure the planning process is efficient, productive, and innovative. I especially want to give a shout out to Justin Mondock for all his help with the virtual side of things. So thank you, Justin. Next slide. Can you hear me? Okay. So what TMA certification review? It's kind of like the Olympics for planning agencies. Every 4 years, the Secretary of the Department of Transportation must certify that each metropolitan planning organization serving a transportation management area, an urbanized area with a population over 200,000 in population, is carrying out the metropolitan planning process in adherence with federal statutes and regulations. FTA, Federal Transit Administration, and FHWA jointly conduct a review of the metropolitan planning process within each TMA on a 4-year cycle. Next. So what do we look at during the review? The reviews focus on compliance with federal regulations, of course, challenges, successes, experiences of the cooperative relationship and the planning process between the MPO, ODOT, Western Reserve Transit Board, and Trumbull County Transportation Board as your public transportation operators. We look at how they conduct the metropolitan transportation planning process in its totality. So what is the outcome of this review? Well, first, the review consists of 3 primary activities. We review the planning products in a desktop review, and then we conduct a site visit normally in person, but with the current situation, we had to do it virtually, and then preparation of a certification review report. The report is to be issued approximately 60 days following the site visit, and it summarizes the process and the findings of the review, as well as if the process is certified subject to corrective actions, or certified for use of only certain construction funding categories. So, next slide. What are the findings of a certification review? Like I said, it can be corrective actions. So that's items that fail to meet the requirements of the transportation statutes and regulations. And we view them as they could seriously impact the outcome of the overall planning process. So we give expected changes and timelines for accomplishing those corrective actions. Recommendations, items that, while somewhat less substantial, they're not regulatory, but they're still significant enough that FHWA and FTA are hopeful that appropriate TMA planning partners will consider taking action on them. So recommendations involve the state of the practice or technical improvements as opposed to solely being based on regulatory requirements. And those suggestions are clearly defined as well in the report. Finally, we have commendations or noteworthy practices. So these are elements that demonstrate innovative, very effective, well thought out procedures for implementing the planning requirements and the process in the area. Elements addressing items that have frequently posed problems nationwide could be cited as noteworthy practices. And also FHWA and FTA may wish to offer accommodations for significant improvements or resolution of past findings. So who was involved and what was the schedule of this year's review? The federal review team consisted of 2 co-leads, myself, and then Mark Kane of FTA, Federal Transit Administration Region 5 in Chicago, Stuart McKenzie from FTA Region 5, Rachel Smith from our Ohio Division Office, Andy Johns from our Ohio Division Office, and then Jennifer Kroback from the Pennsylvania Division Office. The schedule, top review was conducted June 19th through July 10th. But I mean, we started way back in early part of the year, talking to Ken and his staff about what we were needing to look at, and they were incredible with putting together a site so that it was all organized and easy to get to, and we are so appreciative. The federal team is so appreciative of that. Then on August 11th and 12th, the federal review team normally would have come to have an on-site series of meetings and public meeting, but this year we held it as a virtual review that included discussion with MPO staff, Western Reserve Transit Board and Trumbull County Transit Board, state and local government staff, and MPO policy board members. August comment period, consistent with Eastgate's public involvement procedures, requesting comments from the public on Eastgate's planning process. The public comment period was open August 6th through August 17th of 2020. The review report and the certification letter were signed on October 14th, and I'm going to go through the results of the review in the next few slides. So on October, and FTA found that Eastgate to be compliant with all applicable federal transportation planning requirements, and therefore jointly certified the transportation planning process in the Youngstown, Ohio, Pennsylvania transportation management area. There were no corrective actions as a result of this review. So that was fantastic. So we do have 2 recommendations. Recommendation 1, the federal review team recommends that Eastgate ensure that their public involvement program is inclusive and consistent for all their activities in the general planning and transit planning environments. Their public involvement should be clearly defined, highlighted, and documented in a cohesive and transparent manner. Eastgate should project and highlight their public involvement activities and processes in their documentation and on their website. When reviewing their planning documents, they should actively seek comments as a result of their public involvement efforts beyond just the federal agencies and member organizations. It's recommended that Eastgate develop a standalone document to fully outline their public participation process and assess its effectiveness in some kind of routine basis. In addition, a separate area on the website should be created to allow people to provide comments, find out how to be involved in the planning process, and then refine and clarify the the advisory board page. Second recommendation, while the federal review team recognizes Eastgate is following the process outlined in the current Title VI manual, I have to state that first off. Necessary revisions have been identified for that ODOT manual to be done by ODOT, obviously, to more accurately follow the complaint process for complaints received under Title VI regulations. And those are outlined by the U.S. Department of Transportation and FHWA regulations. Once these updates have been made, all Ohio MPOs, RTPOs, including Eastgate, will need to revise their individual Title VI plans to conform with these changes. The federal review team recommends that Eastgate coordinate with ODOT at that time to ensure their Title VI plan reflects all necessary changes. Those changes are underway at ODOT, so you should be hearing something soon from them. Also, Eastgate should identify Title VI policies for the Title VI protected groups, specifically race, color, and national origin, We have found, not just in Ohio, but across the country, many MPOs have inadvertently included other populations in Title VI policies, such as elderly, zero-car households, disability status, etc. However, plans and other material should explicitly state Title VI coverage as indicated by law. So again, that's race, color, and national origin. Finally, Eastgate should consider having an updated schedule for its Title VI implementation plan on an annual basis, including documentation of its accomplishments for the year past, as well as goals for the coming year. So we also have 3 commendations for Eastgate. One I kind of alluded to earlier is kind of not explicit in these, but we just commend you guys for being accommodating, for considering the times and challenges associated with the virtual world, and helping us immensely in our certification review. So thank you again. Commendation 1, the federal team commends Eastgate for its proactive approach to develop and conduct a multimodal network connectivity analysis study to examine the network and explore in detail how the network fits together and provides for the future. The use of a measured data approach to designate targeted areas and focus attention on them has led to a better understanding of deficiencies within the existing transportation network, especially related to bike and pedestrian connectivity and accessibility. Your willingness to participate and share with FHWA and other agencies promotes the goals of Eastgate, ODOT, and the U.S. Department of Transportation. Commendation 2, Eastgate is commended for their coordination efforts and the use of a U.S. DOT build grant to develop the Youngstown Smart 2 network. They are working with other transportation partners to make mobility improvements, improve safety, and driving circulator shuttle into a modern and efficient multimodal transportation system in downtown Youngstown. You have used data to designate some current alternative fuel-ready corridors and have solicited other potential corridors using data to pinpoint locations that meet EPA's criteria. You've created a database to track station locations, which can be updated by communities as stations are added and be directly downloaded into EPA's database. As the project team leader, Eastgate is urging your partners into a new level of recognition, meetings, and assuring progress on the project with project team members, designers, and other parties. Specific to the autonomous shuttles, Eastgate is working diligently with ODOT, Drive Ohio, and other project partners to assure the shuttles are ready for implementation once the roadway projects are complete. And finally, Eastgate is commended for developing the Funding Performance Measures Report from 2019, which documents how analysis of 7 performance targets is used as a tool to assess how well priorities are set for the program and how the agency is administering its planning funds. Eastgate uses the report to add value to the regional transportation process and contributes to the goals of Eastgate, ODOT, and the U.S. Department of Transportation. So again, here if you have any further questions or concerns. So thank you today for allowing me the time to present the findings to you.
Carmen, I'd like to jump in. I'd just like to thank you for your thorough review from you and your team. We rely on your oversight. We rely on your direction from FHWA. Is certainly instrumental in how we continue to move forward. Even though this review is every couple of years, the work evaluated internally, and I know FHWA is working with us on a daily basis to keep us moving forward. And it is really a collaborative effort to keep us aligned and doing the good things in our community. So thank you for you and your team.
Thank you, Carmen. Appreciate it.
we appreciate all your efforts. So
Next up, we have Mark Ragazine, Economic Development Planner, Eastgate, latest on the GM recovery grant effort.
Thank you, Julie. Dominic provided me with an update to give to the group today. The REDS was the Regional Economic Diversification Summit. This was a supplemental piece of the Greater Lordstown Economic Recovery Project that was made possible through EDA funding and support from partner regional organizations and stakeholders. The ultimate goal here was to create long-term partnerships with our regional, state, and federal agencies, as well as further analyze our assets and challenges to economic growth. After engaging with federal, state, regional, and local entities, this summit helped the region to focus our work by leveraging the university, other anchor employers, and our economic development organizations, and of course, state and federal partners to focus on 5 strategic priorities identified by economic analysis conducted by Cleveland State University, Kent State University's Urban Design Collaborative, and YSU's College of Business and the Department of Economics. These areas include electrification and logistics, advanced and hybrid manufacturing, reuse and redevelopment, petrochemicals, mitigation of unemployment through workforce development, which has only been exacerbated by the current pandemic. Specific actions are being taken to create an innovative workforce ecosystem involving public, private, and nonprofit partnerships. This will include research and analysis, recruiting, training tools, and software in order to develop tailored skills and training certification programs that directly connect to good jobs. Other existing priority opportunities will leverage our regional assets, such as our legacy workforce, in order to grow opportunities for the entire Mahoning Valley in advanced manufacturing, electrification, automation, and energy. Our work is focused on developing and strengthening programs that create specific tangible opportunities related to these sectors and their supply value chains, upstream and downstream processes, as well as developing clear career pathways for the people that make up our workforce. The reuse and redevelopment work focuses on stabilizing and improving our region's infrastructure, such as our roads, bridges, highways, rail, water, and air corridors, to leverage our legacy location and the growth of the aforementioned industries, as well as the entire spectrum of logistics they rely on. Action teams have been formed as recommended by the EDA in order to develop a list of needs and resources that will be presented at a reconvening date that is to be determined with EDA and other federal agencies who participated in the REDS. The engagement will lead to the creation of a guidebook that will increase our capacity to pursue funding resources that support the aforementioned initiatives. Thank you.
Thank you for the update, Mark. Any questions regarding?
Julie, I would just like to add, I appreciate Mark carrying the torch for the update on that. I know YSU couldn't be available. They were double booked today to give the update. I think it's important to note that even though we've been talking about that grant for about a year and a half now, we didn't get authorized to have them move forward until March 1st. So in 7-8 short months, we've come a long way. Really look forward to some of the findings in developing the work streams and the teams as we move forward. I've asked YSU to share their update as we move forward, starting with today's general policy and every general policy as we go out into the new year. There's a lot of good stuff coming out of that. That REDS event was outstanding. A lot of federal agencies were able to contact and develop relationships as we continue to look for resources to move this region forward. So I appreciate Mark, but that's a great initiative we have going, and look forward to having even better results as we continue this process. Thank you.
Yep. Thanks, Mark. Next, we have Mike Ripko with the CARES Act update.
Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for the time today. As Jim pointed out, when this CARES Act funding was released, it was $1.5 billion, and we had until September of 2022 to pursue this funding. Well, it didn't last that long. As a matter of fact, it appears that if we don't have proposals in soon as this week, this first round of fundings may not be available to us. Now, we know from following the news is that the Secretary of Treasury and the Speaker of the House are negotiating on a follow-up package that should include additional CARES Act funding or relief funding, but that legislation and negotiations are ongoing, and we hope to hear from that. Nonetheless, in this time, as Jim mentioned, Bright, Lordstown Water Tower, the Golden Triangle, Conneaut, and I spoke with Barb Ewing this morning. YBI has a proposal going in. Those are 5 that I know of that have been submitted. Certainly, you don't have to let us know, but we like to know so that we can help as we can. So if anybody else is pursuing CARES Act money, Kyle Darton gave us a soft deadline of this Friday. That doesn't mean proposals after that won't be considered, but this is obviously at this 20/80 ratio of match has been very, very popular nationally. We are hopeful that there'll be another program. If not, there's the traditional EDA funding that'll still be available that we could pursue. Many of our communities have been coal impacted, which still qualifies us for 80/20 funding. So I encourage you to continue your initiatives, and if there's an opportunity for job creation, economic recovery, maintaining or sustaining jobs, that's what EDA seems to be looking for. They want to get the economy going again post or despite the pandemic. We have, Mark and I talked to them last week with Jim and Joanne, and we floated the idea of how about a large regional planning and economic development grant. Actually, this was one of the byproducts of the REDS event that was held in the state of Maine about 2 years ago. That among the outcomes of that REDS event, there was a significant large regional planning grant. The state of Maine was devastated by the demise of the forest products industry in much the same way as we were by the auto and prior the steel industry. So Kyle said he would consider that. He's asked us to prepare an amendment to the existing proposal, which we will be doing and looking to get that in. That would be something that would be good for Ashtabula, Trumbull, and Mahoning counties, and we would align with the REDS activity, which Mark summarized very well. Just briefly, we're going to focus on advanced manufacturing, logistics, petrochemicals, battery and electric vehicles. Those are the regionally, I guess I'll call them the indigenous technologies that are being established here in the Northeast Ohio corridor. So we're going to pursue a broad range of federal funds during that REDS event, everything from dam removal to infrastructure to airport development to a large planning economic development funding were discussed. And we made our federal partners and many agencies aware of the need that we have. The last thing that I'll mention is that I'm trying to do this job also under the framework of what's called the Communities of Excellence. It was about a year ago that this we call it Mahoning Valley, and it's at the time Mahoning and Trumbull counties, where we were accepted into a NIST a program called Communities of Excellence. It's based on the Malcolm Baldrige Award and the techniques, and it basically says you got to collaborate and you got to pursue data-driven solutions. So they recognize that a lot of communities just kind of do a scattershot approach towards economic development. They said, if you aligned and you work together and you measured your outcomes that were very specific and critical of your results, you'd make more progress. So we begin year 2 of that on November 3rd. So we will be using that Communities of Excellence framework umbrella to help to identify new projects going forward. We're really trying to align everything from the research and infrastructure, workforce development, business attraction, business retention. You line all those things up to make sure that you have a very strong case as we pursue these new economic opportunities for the region. And we've informed the EDA of that. We think they like that approach. Kyle said he studied a bit, and he's supportive of our doing that. So look for going forward an aligned approach towards economic development. We'll continue to meet on that. Our second year starts on November 3rd. We have a session once a month, and assignments due just about every month going forward. So we'll be working on those as part of our economic development strategy.
Thanks, Mike. Does anyone have any questions for Mike? Okay, great. Next, do we have Colonel Dignan here to talk about an update?
Morning. All right, no questions for Mike. Everyone's still taking it in on all the details, but it's coming fast and furious, and gonna dovetail on top of some of what Mike just said, and want to go back to where Jim started. That Eastgate has always been an active participant in the regional economic development efforts here, but now they're directly engaged with the communities and assisting with those efforts to recover from the pandemic, as well as we talked about loss of the auto industry and GM Lordstown. In this case, to do it, Eastgate gained a couple additional assets, both Mike and myself, to come and help in these efforts through a proactive approach of going after these U.S. Economic Development Administration CARES Act recovery assistance grants, among other things. And this is one of really a few. We mentioned there are 55 EDDs across the Chicago region, and this region is one that's out there leading the charge. So what my role here alongside Mike is working directly with primarily the projects and those grants and getting that assistance there and getting through that bureaucratic hurdles. Mine is more of a role to provide all those interested communities here in our region with a one-stop resource for all things related to pandemic recovery, if you would. And that's the economic, the social, you name it. If there are issues that we need, whether it's anything from equipment to getting schools back up, name it, all those things, of coming up and helping to come up with a plan, whether those are connecting your community to a state, local, or federal agency or asset, then that's what I'm here to help you do. And also to help businesses and provide assistance to businesses and those local government officials with your specific recovery efforts and potentially those projects that Mike talked about in each one of your communities. So my job is to work closely with all of those entities across our region, the cities, counties, emergency management directors, as well as first responders and numerous others to really help identify the impacts first, and then the recovery needs and what resources we might need to tie as that specifically relates to the recovery from the effects of the pandemic and all those downstream economic impacts that could have a long-lasting effect. Coming up with a plan, working with these stakeholders to help develop and implement a regional plan, really to help support broad disaster recovery efforts in the region. And these will be, we mentioned before, directly related to the REDS event and some of the other activities that have been going on in our region, and bringing them together in an aligned manner so that we're working in a broad, cooperative manner. Obviously, each community has its own needs and requirements, and it's my job to help kind of manipulate and manage those pieces and make sure everyone gets what they need, and that assistance is here. So with each of those areas, stakeholders in the development and implementation of strategies and or solutions that the virus has presented, and others as well, and overcome these obstacles and help to readapt both economically, socially, and get back to the vibrant community that we know this Northeast Ohio region can be. It's exciting stuff. It's kind of neat to hear Mike and Jim and their interaction here with EDA directly, and for whatever reasons, good, bad, and ugly, the Northeast Ohio region is in the focus, not just in Columbus, but also in Washington, D.C. So it's our opportunity to take advantage of that spotlight, if you will, and try to highlight and bring some resources to bear on our communities here. Barring any other questions, back to you.
Thanks, Colonel Dignan, for the update. We appreciate it. Does anyone have any questions for Mike or Colonel Dignan? If not, we can move on to resolutions for passage. Lisa, are we going to be doing these via email, or how do you want to handle this?
Yes, Julie, we will do these by email after the meeting. So you can review them and just kind of read over the captions. And
Okay.
these will go out to the full policy board committee for approval following the meeting.
Okay, so you would like for me to read each one of these?
I think that's what we typically have done in the past, yes.
Okay, all right, no problem. General Policy Board Resolution Number 027-2020, amending fiscal year 2021 through 2024 Transportation Improvement Program of Eastgate to identify safety funding for the True US 62 and Bedford Broadway intersections. General Policy, is that in Trumbull County? Is that ours, Gary? That first one?
Yes.
Okay, just checking. General Policy Board number 028-2020, resolution of the Eastgate Regional Council of Governments approving adoption of 2020 established statewide targets for safety performance management measures. General Policy Board Resolution Number 029-2020, resolution recommendation to the State of Ohio Governor's Office of Appalachia and Ohio Development Services Agency to support funding for Eastgate Regional Council of Governments Local Development District full application priority of projects in fiscal year 2021 for the Appalachian Regional Commission. General Policy Board number 031-2020, resolution approving the fiscal year 2020 Unified Planning Work Program Progress Report of the Eastgate Regional Council of Governments. General Policy Board resolution number 032-2020, resolution amending the fiscal year 2021 through 2024 Transportation Improvement Program of the Eastgate Regional Council of Governments to add the Western Reserve Transit Authority, Federal Transit Administration, Federal Fiscal Year 2021 Section 5312 AIM Grant Award, additional capital and modified projects. Any discussion on any of these items? I have a question. I'm assuming a intergovernmental review, and then for number 29, do we have the priority project list attached to anything or posted on the website?
Kathy can speak if she's on, but the intergovernmental review resolution is passed at the technical advisory committee level. So that was when that one was already approved, and that's why it's not listed on the agenda. And you cut out for a second, Julie. I don't know if I'm answering your question fully. If Kathy or I can answer it.
Yeah, sorry, my phone rang.
That's okay.
Julie, this is Kathy.
Go ahead, Kath.
Yeah, the project priority has an attachment. I think, Lisa, was that included in the packet that was sent out to the General Policy Board members? I know it went before the TAC as
Right.
well as the Advisory Board. It should have gone out with the agenda because the resolution has a supplemental page which lists each project, the amount awarded. So it should be in the packet, Julie.
It is, Kathy, and I can, when I send it out, if there's questions, I can reattach that when the policy board approves it by email, but it is in the packet today.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Is there any other discussion around any of the items that we covered today at the General Policy Board? Okay. Do we need a motion for adjournment, or do we just adjourn?
You can just adjourn, Julie, if you're good with that.
I am good.
Okay.
Have a great day, everybody. Adjourn.
Thank you, Julie.
Thank you, Julie.